Would love to hear your take on how we all met.
Back then, I was not the person I am today. I was very shy. I was very reserved. The one prayer that I remember praying was, I just really wanted a solid group of friends.
I will 100% say that Rena is the reason we are all friends today, because both me and T were introverts. God knew we needed each other. Amen. And he put us together for a reason.
Once we got out of college, we actually decided to start a business together.
We didn't decide to start a business together. We were led. And honestly, looking back, it's like we didn't even realize like what we were taking on.
It tested our friendship.
It did.
It tested it a lot.
It did.
The fact that we had a faith base in our organization, I feel like really was a positive. Without going through some of those things, it would have been more surface level than it is.
I do think there's power in having other women in your corner that pray with you, that check you too. Like, I feel like I can always count on y'all to tell me the truth. And that is something I appreciate about y'all. And I feel like we have just an honest relationship. Hello. Welcome back to the Rooted in Love podcast. It's me, Rena. Thank you all so much for coming back. You didn't have to, so I appreciate that you chose to be here today. If you have not already, please subscribe and please hit the like button. That's how we continue to make great content. So please support, like, and share as well, because you never know who this could help. And most importantly, please drop some love in the comments. Share your story. We want to grow with you, learn with you. So please share your story in the comments. So today I have the pleasure of having two of my best friends here with me because it's the girls' room. Yeah. And we're going to be talking about friendships and just our lives with Christ, and also how our relationship with God has really been a theme throughout our friendship. And so I'm excited to have them here today. And I'm going to have them introduce themselves and just kind of briefly share how long they've known me.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tenbeat, but people also know me as TT from back in college. I've known Rena since I was 17. We met freshman year of college, and I've also known Fee since around that time as well. So these girls have been in my life for a very long time.
Oh,
how many years is that now? Like,
nobody need to know that. We grown. Woo! That's all they need to know.
All right. Right. Same thing. I believe I was 18. TT's the baby of our friendship. And college as well. And we've just been friends and hanging ever since then, even tighter now than ever. So yeah.
Awesome. So we're going to start with a little bit of an icebreaker, and it's going to be a superlative. And so I want us to kind of decide out of the three of us, who is the best cook?
Rena. Not even.
Definitely not me. Rena.
You can make a mean sourdough bread.
I can bake. I can bake.
And T, you've been practicing with...
Girl, don't come for me.
Okay.
Don't come for me. I can cook. Wait. They still, y'all are still holding on to. I'm still not over that.
The eggs.
Yes. Because they were not exposed to omelets. Oh. Y'all liked your eggs and cheese.
To omelets from TT 25. We love it though.
I can cook.
No, she can. She definitely can cook. All right. Who travels the most?
Me.
Our girl is a travel influencer, by the way. Make sure you check her out.
Yes.
She'll share her handles at the end. But yes, my homegirl is never home. Okay,
she travels more than my flight attendant friend.
She does.
But I love it.
No, we definitely love it and proud of you.
Yes.
And so, last one is, who is the most ambitious?
Fiona.
Oh, I would say like. This is my hustler friend.
Hustler
okay?
always got 3-4 things going on, has a plan, executing.
Has read every self-help book.
Yeah.
Read, guys.
Yes.
Read.
No, she's extremely talented and very successful.
Thank you.
So awesome. Well, thank you all so much for indulging me in that. All right, so we're going to go ahead and jump in, and I would love to hear your take on how we all met. And so, T, you can start.
Okay. Back then, I was not the person I am today. Let's start off by that. I was very shy. I was very reserved. I was very nervous about college with anticipation. And anyway, the one prayer that I remember praying was I just really wanted a solid group of friends. And I was kind of nervous about meeting people. I had met Rena apparently during summer orientation, but I don't remember when.
She said, who's that woman?
I don't remember. And the funny story is I had gone through my first week of classes, and on I hadn't really like connected with anyone. And on my very last class on Thursday, like my last class of that week, Rena just comes up to me in class. She's like, "Hey, girl," and I was like, "Hi," and she was like talking to me like she knew me. And
I have a photographic memory with people's faces.
Yeah, and you ended up naming a person that I did meet during summer orientation. So I thought, oh my gosh, I must have met her. Mm-hmm. But your energy was so infectious. I was like, I like this girl. So I just went along with it. And I remember you were like, okay, we're going to grab lunch after class. Come. And I was like, okay. And literally the rest is history.
And we've been tied to the hip.
Ever since. And then you connected me with Fee eventually. Yep. Mm-hmm. With what you guys have going on.
Sophie, how did we meet?
I will 100% say that Rena is the reason we are all friends today, because both me and T were introverts. I probably was the most introverted. I didn't talk to nobody. They were like, them and like my cousins, like a few other people were like my only friends. And the only reason why I knew people was because of really like Rena and then T. Me and Rena, we actually met in college as well. We basically were in a modeling troupe together. We also did a dance team together, and we were both just very creative and like, you know, y'all are both ambitious too. Like we were all just ambitious, trying new things. And then TT and I met, like she said, through Rena, which that's a whole story in itself. God knew we needed each other. Amen. And he put us together for a reason. So
as you think of like how your own faith journey, how would you describe how you became a believer? Describe your faith journey.
For me, I was always raised in the faith. But in my household, being, you know, East African, it was definitely, we were raised to know God, and we went to church, and we had our traditions and our holidays that we celebrated. But I can't say that I had a relationship with God. So I had experiences with God, and I truly believed in God growing up, but it wasn't until I had graduated college, and I just went through a lot of life changes. I was freshly graduated. I had got an offer, moved to the middle of nowhere, arguably, Virginia, and I had nobody, and I was just walking on faith, and I was praying along the way. You know, I had that foundation. I believed in Jesus, and I believed in God, and I would pray. But I just went through a lot in a very short amount of time. And that was the first time in my life that I truly just gave everything to God. Like, I literally was working and focusing on God during that time. And he showed up for me in ways that I just can't describe. And when people say, why are you a believer? It's like, I experienced him during that time. And it's not something, like, it's something that you would have to go through to understand. But he truly he got me through a lot. And you guys know what I'm talking about.
So can you, like, give us a specific experience or encounter that really strengthened your faith?
Yeah, sure. So during the time that I am speaking of, I was pretty much the role that I had started working, and in the industry I was in, it was very male, white dominated. We can start there, right? And the role that I was in, I didn't have any support in the job that I was at. So and it just demanded so much of me. So I pretty much dove in head first, and I ended up working a lot of hours, and I was taking on a lot of stress. And I will say that was the first time in my life that, so we're talking about like months of me working 60 to 70 hours a week. And my roommate noticing, my mentor that I had, the one black man that was in my department that was helping me, noticing. And I just started really struggling. And with that struggle, I ended up, having some consequences with my health, with my physical health. I know my hair started falling out. You guys remember that? Like, I just started experiencing a lot of physical complications. And then I started entering, like, the first time I was ever like exposed to depression because I was putting so much pressure on myself. And that pressure came from, being first generation, I'm immigrant, and then first generation college. I graduated from college. I'm the first one in my family, and I'm trying to make my family proud, which is why I took on the role. So I had all these pressures that I put on myself, and then I was stuck in the middle of nowhere having to do everything on my own. And that's when the enemy really got to me, in the sense of like I had no escape. And I, like, for the first time in my life, I really was like depressed. Elevation at the time was a church I was going to, and they had just started a ministry in the area I was in. And I ended up meeting these middle-aged white women, y'all. And I started going to Bible study with them twice a week. Like I
totally forgot about that.
Yeah, that's true. I was going to Bible study with them twice a week, and I literally, when I tell you, I would work and do my, like, would just focus on God. Like that's the only thing. And he just ended up taking me out of, I mean, it was a very hard experience. Like, I don't want to make light of it. I'm talking a year of this, but through prayer, God really just, people ended up in the office helping me with issues, so much so that other people noticed it and would call out. Like, that's when I knew it was God. They're like, who's helping you? Wow. I was dealing with family issues and whatnot, but like when other people started noticing my blessing.
Come on. I like that. Yeah.
It's the truth. Like, it was just a lot going on, but I would pray about something and God would answer it.
Amen.
Whether that was a person at my office that you wouldn't think would help me, whether that was just, I guess supplying my need. Like, it was just in so many different subtle ways, and he was just able to really get me out of that. And that's what helped me realize, and for the first time in my life, I truly saw, like, I had a relationship with God, and I saw him just show up for me in ways that are just really supernatural. Like, I can't even explain it.
That's beautiful. I love that. And that's what it's about. Like, it's an intimate relationship that he hears every cry. So thank you for sharing that. What about you, Fee?
It's funny because, so I grew up very different. I came up in a household where there was a lot of church hurt with my parents. So they believed in God. They believed in Jesus. They just didn't really go to church like that. And so my perception of like church was like, there's God, but I don't really know like any of the principles. I know I'm supposed to be a good person, but I don't know how to fight battles because I don't know my authority. And it's funny how, kind of like what you were saying about, he just shows up in supernatural ways, because even though I didn't have parents who were bringing me to church, it's funny because I have 3 brothers. I never had sisters, but it was always friends like you guys, and my friends growing up. They would always be like, hey, we're going to church. Come with me. And I remember sitting in church and just like looking or listening to the preacher all the time. And I'm just like, wow, like I never knew these things. And Rena has been, and also TT, both of y'all have really been such influence in my life. But one thing I do remember was, Rena, you were kind of the first one to, in our friendship, to really dive deep into your faith. And I remember just, you always just like subtly checking us about like, maybe you shouldn't do that, or
you could just be real. I was self-righteous during that time.
No, but it was needed. Like, you know, you never want to hear what you're doing wrong, but those seeds were planted.
Oh, wow.
And that's why I always said you were going to do something powerful with your words, because you were so, like, the Holy Spirit was definitely speaking through you. Every time you spoke to me, it was always in a situation that I was uncomfortable with, but you always brought it out of me to, like, think differently and think better. And I remember just constantly being inspired by that. And then me and TT, we actually got baptized together.
Yeah. In the same place.
In the same place.
The darkest time.
The darkest time. In the past, I had a lot of depression and anxiousness. Y'all know about that. I just remember just feelings of like unworthiness, or like feeling like I'm not good enough. Like when you don't have, I feel like when you don't have God in your life and something goes wrong in your life and you have like, you feel like you don't know what to turn to, you, and that's when the enemy works the most. And he works in lonely places. I feel like a lot of times he uses people to bring you out, like the women that you met at Elevation and just different, like he uses people to bring you out of those situations. And just being observant of that and knowing, like, if someone invites you to church, or if someone is like trying to give you some advice, like, don't just get, you know, upset about it. Like, maybe that's God trying to tell you something. Because it was a lot of times where I got upset.
And y'all, in my first video, when I talked about like that friend who was like, if you want to be at the club, then stop coming out with us. This was her. But it was exactly, I mean, it was a real conviction. Yeah. So the same way you felt like I've spoken to you, you've spoken to me too. And probably didn't even know. Like that was a real conviction. So thank you for that.
Of course.
I have so many questions.
But no, so thank y'all for sharing that. And I think it just speaks to the anchor of our friendship. You know, it didn't just stop there. Like once we got out of college, we actually decided to start a business together. And this was during the time, like we were literally one of the first people to start doing like women's empowerment brunches and things like that, which we know everybody's feeling in their feelings about that now. But back then, like we really started it because we didn't feel like there were a lot of collaborative community-based spaces for young women to just connect with each other and grow together. And so we started an organization years ago. It's been over almost eight years ago or so. And with that came a lot of ups, but also came some downs, right? What was one positive impact for you? And then what was one negative experience? And then how do you feel like it strengthened our friendship and even our relationship with God too?
The God piece I want to speak to first, because we didn't decide to start a business together. We were led.
That's true. That is true.
We had
That's so true.
Specific signs. We were talking amongst ourselves one day, I remember, and then it was like we each had different extension of friends, and we were finding out there were similar trends in our extension of friends, and there was like a gap here that we could, there's not a lot of people, a lot of women didn't have the relationships that we had, right? So we were like, and then we tested our own theory for 6 months, and we saw, oh my gosh, like with support and consistency, we could do a lot, and we wanted to share that with other people. But I think the actual, like, there was like a divine intervention with why we decided to launch it, right? I was amazed at how many women came up to show up for us, like our ambassadors, like supporting us. And then when we actually, like, there's so much work, there was so much time, there was so much energy that went into us executing each event, right? But being in the midst of it and then seeing everyone come out to support you, but then also seeing the testimonies and seeing everyone's experiences and then seeing people want to come back was that was that brought me so much joy. That's what kept me going. Like, that was my proud moment. On the flip side, honestly, the hardest part for me was just, we were very young. We had just graduated college. We were all navigating different parts of our lives. Like, I was away, like, it was so many moving parts. And I think the challenge was it was just hard. Like, it was just hard. We were doing a lot in a very short amount of time, and we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, which then we felt in our relationship. So I think when I'm thinking about what was the hardest part, it was just navigating those nuances. It was, and honestly, looking back, it's like we didn't even realize like what we were taking on.
Right. It tested our friendship.
It did.
It tested it a lot.
Did.
And we almost didn't make it. We almost did.
But I mean, I don't think we would have never not made it. I think that's what has always been the base of our relationship. We've always respected each other in good times and in bad. And that's like, it spoke to why we started an organization like that to begin with. Yeah. You know what I mean? That foundation.
What about you, Fee?
The fact that we had a faith base in our organization, I feel like really was a positive, because we were about business. We were about so many different things, but like faith was also rooted in it. And you could see, like you said, from the stories of the people who are a part of our organization, there were so many people who would just like either write us or DM us or call us and just like, man, that event or that ambassador discussion we had, man, it really changed a lot for me, and it inspired me. And that I feel like drives you more than anything. And then also too, our friendship. I think there was negatives to like what we went through, but ultimately I feel like we came out stronger. I feel like we learned a lot about each other, and we gained a love for each other. I think that without going through some of those things, it would have been more surface level than it is. And we were drained a lot. I think someone actually, we told them one time that it was just us who were the owners. And they were like, I thought it was like 100 people who were part of this organization. We're like, that's what it felt like. Yeah. But it was we were burnt out. And when we were burnt out, that also brings arguments. And now you're trying to divvy up stuff. And if you feel like someone's not pulling their weight, or, vice versa, it's like now there's really intense discussions. And we met almost once a week, twice a week. I mean, it got to the point I felt like where when we were with each other, we didn't even talk about our friendship anymore.
Let's pause there, because I think that's just to even give people context, and hopefully anyone who's an entrepreneur or is pursuing a business with a friend or doing business with a friend, I think that was something we underestimated. Because number one, I feel like I was just so thankful to be doing something not only with y'all, but to be doing something that we were consistent with. Because I had tried a bunch of different stuff and eventually I quit them. So to be a part of something where we held each other accountable, and really, like you said, we were meeting weekly for almost 5 years. Like, we were very consistent for hours and planning everything and doing everything ourselves. And that was not easy a lot of times. Yeah. And so, like you said, most of our conversations centered around the business. Yeah. And then it almost became like we didn't want to hang out with each other, right? Yeah. Because every time we did hang out with each other, it was about the business. Yep. So I can understand that tremendously, but feel free to continue.
Yeah. So I think that was the one negative. It was almost I feel like a blessing in disguise, because it got to a point where it was so bad, like you said, where we were just like at the breaking point almost, where it forced us to have those hard conversations. And I feel like that's where we really grew as friends. Like, I feel like that's where we actually like learned about our personalities. Me and TT are very similar. And
I was always
the mediator. So, you know, we had to learn how to navigate being different from someone or also being very similar to someone and bumping in different ways. And I think once we had those really deep conversations, like something beautiful flourished from that because we truly, one, knew who each other were. Yeah. And we loved each other for who we were. And we realized like this is like, even though this is my person, I'm not going to treat you like this because I know this bothers you because I actually took the time to know what bothers you. It's like...
It sounds like a marriage.
It is. Well, I think it's like, it's easy when you're like in a work environment because you ain't got to see them people no more.
Yeah,
like, but true. Like in a business environment, especially with your best friend, not even just friends, your best friends, it's like you have to take into account their feelings. And me growing up, I like business was very cutthroat. Like it was very cutthroat. And I will say,
you were like like she was the get it
because
done.
I was like, look, we just got to do it. And that's it. Like, hush, be quiet. Like, let's do it. That's how I'm motivated, though. Yeah. Everybody isn't motivated the same. So when you learn how other people are motivated, that's when you can grow. Because I was like, okay, some people actually like encouragement or they like to be spoken into, uplifted. Like, you can't just be cutthroat with everybody. Some people do like that. Like me. Like, just tell me straight up. Mm-hmm. But it's not everybody. So.
No, thank you for that. And I feel like we would never have learned things about each other because, you know, a lot of times when you're friends, like we were friends before we started a business together, right? But we were friends that went out. We were friends that went on vacations. Yeah. So you're in these like fun settings, right? And so it's easy to not have difficult conversations. The most difficult conversations you're probably having is about a man who didn't do what he needed to do, you know? Or maybe he did. I mean, we're not trying to say they did. Or maybe it was her, right? Maybe she was the problem. But either way, like, it's almost lighthearted, right? Mm. But then when you start a business with each other, it goes from like, we only talk about like these surface things, or maybe not surface things, but it's like, it's not as deep compared to when you're in a business. You almost then start having these like critical conversations, you know? Whether it's about capacity or money or whatever, like you're starting to have these deeper conversations. Yeah. So thank y'all for adding that, but go ahead.
Of course, yeah.
We were just learning different sides of each other. Mm-hmm. And then also having to face a lot of confrontation, like confrontation that you wouldn't typically face when you're just friends with someone. Yeah. And navigating what those conversations look like in these different, and like, you know, so it was a lot of learning, I think, for us.
Do you feel like it's made us more honest with each other now? Like now that we're no longer in business together, we're just friends, right? Like, do you feel like that experience has made us more honest?
Definitely.
How so? Like, how do we handle conflict now?
Because we know each other so much better. Like instantly, if you're upset about, I know immediately. Or like if you're upset, like I know that I'm getting to you. And it's like so easy for me to notice those things now where previously I was like kind of blinded by just like getting the job done. Now I'm like very intuitive with you all as people. And I feel like that also opens doors to like, okay, now I see she's upset. Like, let me ask deeper questions because I know my friend, I know her. So, and I also think we were more open because we've had so many conversations that like a conversation to us is like sipping coffee because we're just so in tune with each other, and it doesn't bother us to have the conversations anymore because we've seen such a blessing come from conversations. Communication in any relationship, I feel like, is so important, and I think our testimony through that has shown that. And so I feel like now we just know, like, if we need to talk about something, like, we need to talk about it. It can you can still have difficulties with it just because at the end of the day, it's your best friend. Yeah. So you can always be like nervous to have it. But I don't think there's ever a moment that we haven't had a conversation.
That was hard. What advice would you give? And I don't want to just even call it advice, but just words of wisdom, things that you've learned in regards to other women who might not believe that that healthy friendships with women even exist?
It's really about the faith, honestly, because I feel like kind of in any relationship, just like with communication, like when you have a faith base in those friendships, like I know that I can pray. If I'm having an issue with one of my friends, I can pray and be like, Lord, please give me the words to speak to her, or please, like, you know, open her heart to understand what I'm saying, or, you know what I mean? If we need each other, if we need to pray for each other, I know I can call either one of y'all and y'all could pray for me, because I know that your faith and your belief, I think that's so important. And I also think that it doesn't have to start that way, because like I said, we didn't start that way. But it's about being willing to grow together. Like I was saying earlier, like being open to hearing hard conversations from your friends, like and not being scared of those conversations, because you never know where it's going to go. I think when people stay to themselves and stay kind of like we talked about earlier too, lonely in those places where the enemy likes to work the most, that's when it can just take you everywhere, because I feel like you can't really change a thought with a thought. Like I learned through, you know, really getting through anxiousness back in the past. Like one thing I heard reading all my books was that you can't change a thought with a thought, because it only creates more thoughts. And that's where a lot of anxiety can come from. And so you really have to speak against it. Words are so powerful. Like God literally created this earth through words. And so like not only being able to have those conversations, but what are you speaking over your friends? Like, are you having a friendship, but then are you going and, you know, saying something like really negative to like bring their life down? Are you uplifting their life? Are you praying for them? Are you, you know, praying to be able to have conversations with them? Or even if you don't have that faith yet, like, are you at least being open to having the conversations and just being kind? It just, so many of those things makes the relationship so much better. But at the end of the day, you can't change a thought with a thought. It's only going to make it worse. You have to communicate. And I think that's where friendship really develops.
And I just even piggybacking off what you just said, I wonder how many people end up even stopping themselves from having those type of friends because of what you've spoken over your life, right? Whether it's like, I don't trust women, you know, or I only have male friends, or, you know, and it's like, well, if you keep speaking that's the type of women you're going to keep encountering. And so thank you for sharing that. What about you, T?
I would look into myself and ask, why do you feel like you can't have women friends? Because there's women out here that you can have friends with. You just might need discernment to find out who those women are. You know, I mean, we've all had failed relationships. Like this is several years in the making. Like, you know, and I think you have to, I would just say like that little prayer that I prayed before I went to college was real. And so pray and give it to God. Like if you're looking for genuine and honest and real relationships with women, give it to God and be open. And so that when you meet women, like you feel good energy, and then like, you know, you can be led. But I think it starts with within. There's good women out here. There's everyone's, you know what I mean? Don't let the social media fool you. Like,
And so there is so much power in friendship. There's power in people coming into agreement with one another. And I do hope that, not saying, you know, try to aspire to have this, but it's saying that we're not meant to just walk this world alone, right? And not to say it has to be another woman, but it's to say I do think there's power in having other women in your corner that pray with you, that check you too. Like I feel like I can always count on y'all to tell me the truth. And that is something I appreciate about y'all. And I feel like we have just an honest relationship. It's just, and it's also a relationship of like service. Like y'all do things that I don't even have. Like y'all came today with flowers, you know, like that was so, I would have never thought about that, you know, but I appreciate that. And the fact that y'all are so thoughtful in that, like I don't take that for granted. So thank you, God, for y'all. Like, I do. Did you want to say something?
It's so true, because there were so many times where, you know, if I had something going on with TT, or if you and I had something going on, or you and TT had something going on, like, we would be able to speak into each other to bring each other out of that, like to be the one to pray about it, or be like, hey, maybe you should look at this, right? Like, it made us so much stronger. Not to say like you have to have 3 people to do that. Like, I'm just saying it was God sent. Like, it was God sent.
Yeah.
We needed each other.
I really think it came down to having that foundation of respect.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna, you know, I may not have liked you in certain moments. I'm being real.
That's real.
I'm being real.
That's
like, because I don't want to sit here and sugarcoat everything. Like,
no.
But we always loved each other.
but we still, like, yeah, we may not have liked each other, but we loved each other, and sometimes we needed time apart, and we needed to cool off. But at the end of the day, I respected these 2 women, and I knew that y'all weren't going anywhere. We just had to work through what we had to work through. And Michelle, like, I remember hearing a podcast about when Michelle was talking about the hardest time she went through with Obama when they had the kids. And her point was, like, a lot of people in our generation, issues come up, and it's like, because you're going to deal with challenges in any relationship. If you're friends with someone over a period of time, you're going to go through something. That person's going to offend you, and you may offend them. But it's how you approach that situation, your willingness to work through it, have those tough conversations, being open-minded, you know what I mean? Like, it's easier said than done. You know what I mean?
Can we come back to that? Because I feel like we are in cancel culture, right?
Yeah.
We are in the culture where, like, I remember there was a season, everybody was posting on Instagram or on social media just about, like, you know, blocking friends who no longer serve you, or like not dealing with people who no longer serve you. Like, how do you all feel like we were able to navigate that? And like, what thoughts do you even have about that?
Like I said, I really think it comes down to respect. Like,
yeah,
I'm not going to lie. There's some people in my life that kind of operate in that realm right now, even, you know, and I've recognized it. And I'm at a point where it's like, if that's where you want to move, then that's on you. But I'm always here if you're willing to talk. You know what I'm saying? And like, I don't know what else to say.
Well, I think everybody isn't meant to be your friend too.
That's true.
Like,
Because I feel like sometimes, and that's not to say you can't love people, that's not to say you can't pray for people or have a heart for people, but also, I feel like no matter what was going on with us, there was always a pull for us to like bring the best out of each other, like in every way, from business to faith, from everything. And I feel like a lot of times when you're bringing the best out of each other, kind of like what you were saying on your episode 2,
Come on now.
a lot of times when you have people who are like in your life to kind of help you, or like if God placed them in your life, a lot of times they can check certain things about you that is hard to hear, but I feel like it makes you better. If you haven't built yourself up enough to like handle that and not get so offended that you just cut that person off, and you're not open to hearing what they have to say, a lot of times those friendships aren't going to work. And those are sometimes the friends that maybe you don't really, you may need in your life, you may not. But if no one is willing to change or willing to hear you or willing to try to like uplift you too or make you better, like you need those people in your life who want to see the best for you.
I was going to say too, piggybacking off of what you just said about, you know, not every friend is your friend, or not every friend is right for you in that season, right?
Exactly.
And so for example, I know I went through an evaluation period. When I turned 30, I was a mom, I was a wife, and I honestly just did not have the time to give to all the millions of friends that I had accumulated in my 20s, right? Yeah. And so I really had to evaluate each friend. And I almost interviewed all my friends. They all could probably remember me calling them and asking them, and not like an interview, but just really kind of like checking in with each, do we still like serve each other? Am I still beneficial to you as a friend? Do you feel like, that you're beneficial to me? Like, and really just checking in, because I think sometimes people stay in friendships because of longevity too. And it's no longer serving. And it's not to say like serving you from a place of like they're supposed to be doing things for you.
Right.
But it's to say, I believe there's just different seasons you have in your life.
Exactly.
And some people will bring you closer to the purpose God has called for you. And some people will take you further away. And so it's like evaluating, does this person bring me closer to God? And if they do, all right, great. If they don't, let's have a conversation. Because sometimes God wants you to minister into them and not just cut them off, right? And so yeah, I feel like that was such a good experience that I had for like with y'all, and being able to have those real conversations of, hey, do we still want to do this thing? You know, we've been friends for almost over 10 years. We want to keep going. Do we want to keep going for another 10?
Right.
You know, but I do think there should be periodical check-ins.
It should.
Right? Like, just because we say we friends now don't mean we should assume
say
that.
this is the only friend group where I do that.
Well, I think
you check in?
Honestly, yeah.
Why is that? Like, why are you not checking in with your other friend groups?
As far as checking in, we check on each other.
Do you feel like, regardless of the group of friends, when you think of some of the other groups, do you feel like they bring you closer to God?
Some do.
Okay. And the ones that don't, do you feel like there's a cause or reason there? Or have they just been around?
I think it's just more so like the level of closeness, you know, like every different friend groups serve different purposes.
That's true. And there's lots of people who are friends
like,
with people out of convenience.
There's that.
Going back to you said, like, just having the evaluations, like I did something similar as well. And I feel like there are some friends who I know me personally, I can confide in them with some of my, hardest situations. And I know that I'm going to get life out of that. Like, they're going to bring life into it. And then there's also some friends, kind of like what you said, where I know that I can pour life into them. And maybe I'm in their life because I need to, help them come to Jesus or help them, be closer. But I may not tell them everything. I may not, do all the things that they're doing in life at the moment because I'm just in a different stage in life. But that doesn't mean I don't love them any less. That doesn't mean I don't care about them. But there's just different levels of friendship. And eventually, I want all my friends to be in similar levels, but I just know, like, you can't force it. And one thing about me is I had a very controlling personality. So I had to learn, God really checked me, and you can't control people. Whether it's your husband, whether it's your relationships with friends, you can't control people. You just have to pray for them. You have to if you're meant to lead them to Christ, and you feel that, and you feel that discernment, do that as well. But also there's some people who you just need to pray for. Maybe that's where they are in your life. Maybe it's not, you're not with them all the time. You're not hanging with them all the time, but maybe you're just praying for them. Maybe you're praying blessings and abundance and things, or for them to get their salvation. Every relationship is different. You don't have to be best friends with everybody. And I feel like I have started to learn that is there's some people I've known for a long time. There's some people who are really close with me now. And then there's also some people who I just I know hey, I need to be speaking into their life, bringing them to Christ, or I need to be praying for them, but I still love them. I will still always be there for them if they need me. There's still.
No, I appreciate that. No.
Yeah.
And that's honestly the right thing. And I feel like as Christians who, it's not even always in regards to us ministering. I think our ministry is in our actions, right? It's how we show love. It's how we show up. It's how we pray for others. Right. When we see, if we see that, okay, maybe they are struggling with something, instead of judging or instead of criticizing, it's you know what, I'm going to pray for them. And so thank you for even circling back to that, because I think it is easy to be like, well, they're not bringing me to God, or they're not serving me in this season, and to just cut them off. But it's like, he's called us to pray, because at the end of the day, you don't know what that prayer is going to do. And you might not see it in that year, but years down the line, like, prayers do get answered eventually. So,
and I feel like I feel like a lot of times there's shame in doing that for people. Like, there's shame in, because I know have felt shame in like distancing myself before from certain friendships. But I feel like you like when you have the Holy Spirit in you, you can discern like what is for you or what you need. You can discern like, hey, God, do I need to be, praying for this person, or do I need to be, bringing this person to you? Like, what do I need to do in these situations? And he will lead you on what you need to do. But like, some people may also get upset at that because they're so used to, you know what I mean? Having those tight relationships, but you can't feel that shame. Like, you also have to do like what God has called you to do. And knowing that just because this may be how it is in this season, that doesn't mean it can't change in the next season. It's just where you are right now.
Well, thank y'all so much for joining today's conversation. And as we close out, I would love for y'all to just kind of give what would be one word of advice that you would give to somebody who is seeking for kingdom friendship. They're looking, they're seeking God for, women who are not only like-minded, but like I said, bringing them closer to God. Or even women who want to be a light for the people in their lives, right? And so what last advice would you guys give them?
We are not God. We can't control people, and we have to remember that, and remember, like, be led by him. Like, let the Holy Spirit lead you. And if you are still growing in your faith, like what TT was saying earlier, like, work on that inner you, right? Like, figure out what you need to do to get yourself in those positions. And maybe it is like, talking to a friend who may be a little bit further in their faith, and opening up those conversations and having those, questions answered, because that's how I learned. I didn't have, like I said, a faith base, but it took, people in my life who were a few steps ahead of me for me to actually be open, because no one can make you open. You have to be open to hearing those things. And God uses people. He used disciples in the Bible. So people are in your life for a reason. And so just, be open.
Amen. Thank you.
Yep. I would say for me is to start with prayer. Just take it back to the basics. God will always answer your prayer. And don't be afraid to put yourself in uncomfortable situations, in the sense of like different spaces that you may not be used to. You'd be surprised like what just putting yourself out there will do. I've gained friendships from just being in very different places and just challenging myself. So just put yourself out there and just lead with faith.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies. I love y'all. I appreciate you guys for being here today. And again, please make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And thank you for joining us on Rooted in Love.